And it should get going. Perfect. So everybody, welcome to Coming to Building with Books and Stories that Strengthen Kids. I'm so grateful to Dr. Melissa Heath and her wonderful wisdom. Most of you are probably aware of Dr. Heath. And Dr. Heath, would you like us to be formal or go by Melissa?
No, just Melissa. I never have anybody call me Dr. Heath.
I don't usually, but I figured I'd start that way with you out of respect and gratitude for your wisdom. I'm Bethany Monson-Ford, the current UASP president, and I'm so glad that I'm seeing members and non-members participating today. We intentionally wanted this session in particular to be free to non-members as well as members. The content, of course, hopefully will be very helpful in your everyday practice, and hopefully we're able to learn from each other as much as from Melissa. We're just letting more people in. I knew that would happen as soon as I start talking, all the other people start filtering in. What we wanted to chat with you about overall, you're welcome to have your cameras on or off. That's up to you, whatever you feel most comfortable with. Given that we have a small number of folks participating, roughly about 20 today, Melissa is great and stated, we can have some good conversation. So roughly every about 20-25 minutes, I'll probably prompt Melissa of, hey, do we have some questions? My thought for all of those in the audience today and our participants, feel free to use the chat if you want to jot down a question so you don't have to mentally think through it. And we can come back to those questions. Or if you don't want to put something in the chat, you're welcome to also just kind of make a mental note or a postie somewhere. I believe everyone is aware that I'm being formal again because I was going to go with university affiliation, but Melissa has retired this last year from BYU and relocated to Texas. So we're just so grateful that she's continuing to provide information and share her wisdom and discuss, help with this wonderful discussion with our UASP members and our non-members. Before I turn it over to Melissa, I do want to give one quick heads up that in a few months, we are going to be looking forward to our spring conference. The details are to come, but our main topic will likely be around suicidality and prevention and different supports. So we're hopeful that you'd be able to join us. Please watch for further information. Right now, we're looking between either the 2nd or 3rd Friday in April. So with that, Melissa, thank you so much and take it away.
All right. Thank you so much for letting me come and share stuff with you today. This PowerPoint and the resources that I talk about are in the folder online, and we will send that link out again after the presentation so that you guys can all make sure that you have that link. And then in that, you can download whatever you want to download and use them for your own. Whenever I make a PowerPoint, I always want to tell people, you're welcome to use anything in this PowerPoint. You don't have to refer back to me that I made it or anything like that. I don't even care. Especially now that I'm retired, it's like, just use it, put your name on it, change it up however you want to change it up. Sometimes it saves time when you see something, you think, oh, I like that. Like, for instance, the background of this PowerPoint is a picture I took of clouds a long time ago. I'm always taking pictures of clouds and pictures of leaves on the ground. So I try to have stuff that you can make PowerPoints with, and you're welcome to use all my stuff. I don't even care. It's just fine. And the folder for those resources are on the first page of this PowerPoint. In the PowerPoint, things are active, so you just kind of go over top of it and the link comes up. So you're welcome to do that. I also want to say before we start is that I've had a lot of students from BYU that were really helpful in supporting the bibliotherapy movement, and Katie Smith, Robin Orr, especially those two. I feel like they really helped a lot to help create the website and all of the resources that we have on the website. And I'll be telling you more about that website in just a little bit. But those two students, and then we had students like Danielle Lewis did her thesis on using bibliotherapy to support children with autism and their grief. let's see, who else? Taryn Roberts did hers on divorce, how school psychologists use books about divorce with children whenever parents are divorcing. And lately, just recently, we've done a lot of stuff on the suicide of a parent. And one of the students, Cortland Watson, did a thesis on that. We just recently published his thesis. It was about looking at 7 very young children who, as young children, had their parent commit suicide. And then as adults, then we interviewed them and got this information of what they thought might be helpful or not helpful, and about the books that you could use with kids. So that's really interesting. And we just had quite a few things like that. Susie Wilson helped interview those people, and that was her dissertation, or her thesis. And so we've just had a lot of students in special ed and school psychology. And now in the doctoral program, we've had several that are doing books of grief with grandparents and having grandparents use. So it's not like the school psychologist is doing all this, but it's like you would provide the family with books that they could read, and especially grandparents. We feel like they could be a really good connection when children are grieving. So we've just done a lot of stuff. So I just want to acknowledge that up front. Much of this stuff that I'm doing is a result of all of the help from the students that they've shared with me. Okay, so the BYU Bibliotherapy website is called Building Social Skills with Books. And so the link is right there, and it takes you to the website. There are free lesson plans, and they're all based on children's picture books. These lesson plans include resources and activities and posters. And then we have also in the folder online, it's an Excel file with the 120, I think there's 120 books, lesson plans. It has a link so you can do searches and find, like, let's say you're wanting to look where a father might have died, or you want something on suicide, or you want something on. So we tried to cross connect everything so you can do a search that way for search words, and you can use that Excel file for that. Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about today. Probably we're not going to fit everything in. That's why the PowerPoint is kind of self-teaching. Near the end, I put more information in because I knew we're probably not going to get through everything, but you can go through it yourself and see the resources that are in it. First, we're going to talk about students' problematic behaviors. In 2012, we started doing this project where we were asking grades 1 through 5 teachers about what were the most problematic behaviors and what were the social skills that they desired in their students. Because we were creating the website, but we wanted to have feedback from teachers so that we would know what do teachers need in relation to social skills. We're going to, and then we went from that to say, well, the things that they desire are sort of line up with the student's social emotional learning, which that's a huge buzzword now. And it's just, we started it a long time ago where we were looking at, we think that when children are in school, more than academics, actually, the social emotional stuff is every bit as important or more important, because lifelong, your interactions with people and your relationships are a huge factor in your happiness, in your stability, in your ability to just meet with other people and get along with other people, hold jobs, things like that. Those things are very important. And I think sometimes in school, we overlook the importance of those things. However, now it's become super important. So we didn't know this at the time, but it's just really important. People are putting a lot more focus on social emotional learning. But we also talk about bibliotherapy. I'll tell you, we'll go through a quick thing about bibliotherapy so you kind of understand the groundwork for that. Then we're going to talk about that website, Building with Books project in the website. Then we're going to talk about additional resources to address. I just limited it to 3, but we have book lists with lots of other types of issues. But I have more stuff on grief, trauma and crisis intervention, and mindfulness. Those 3 things I just have a lot of stuff on. So I'm sharing that with you. All right. So let me go and put you guys over here. All right. Impact of problem behaviors. First of all, teachers spend a large portion of their classroom time dealing with problematic behaviors. In fact, some studies have shown that up to 1/3 of a teacher's time is spent on disciplinary issues in the classroom, managing behavior, things like that. And it's especially prevalent when teachers feel really unprepared to manage behavior in their classes that they take to become a teacher. They are learning all these issues, but they don't really learn a lot about children's behavior. And so when they come to this, the behavior problems show up, this person who is prepared to be a teacher really doesn't know a whole lot about managing behavior. So they kind of have to learn it on the fly. And school psychologists are a big part of helping teachers learn some skills in managing behavior. And then students' behavior problems are one reason teachers decide to leave the profession. In fact, almost half of teachers leave the profession within 3 to 5 years. There's a lot of burnout, and a big, huge part of it, I've talked with lots of teachers, big, huge part of that is they are really exhausted from managing problem behaviors, especially aggression and where kids act out, and they have to do these, and they have kids with special needs as well who require more management of behavior, and yet they're not really given the support to manage those behaviors. So those are just some issues that are problematic. And when we did this, actually her thesis was in 2015, but we did the study starting in 2012, collecting data and then putting it together. And she did a thesis on it in 2015, and that was Kim Weed. So the 5 most problematic behaviors, and this kind of rang true to us: children being defiant, refusing to comply with the teacher's request, children being aggressive, hits, kicks, shoves, children being insensitive, mean-spirited, says or does things to hurt others' feelings. Inattentive is a huge one. Kids are off task, distracted, daydreaming, and teachers really, they just don't know how to manage that. And then also disrespectful to adults when children talk back or children are very rude with the adults. That's really hard for teachers to manage. So those were the 5 most problematic behaviors that they said. Now, look on the opposite side, positive behavior support. It's where we do school-wide things and classroom-wide things to proactively encourage good behavior. We create positive school rules, and we don't say no hitting, no hurting others. You can see how it's more positive when you say, keep your hands and feet to yourself. That's a positive refrain of no hitting and no hurting others. So we want to think of behavior in a positive way, and in a proactive way we want to manage. So they define behavioral expectations clearly for each age group. So teachers may have, oftentimes you'll see in the classroom, it's really good to post the classroom and in the hallways, if it's school-wide behavior, of course, posting the rules, going over those rules so the students know what those are, what the expectations are. Those are really important. And it has to be age appropriate, your expectations. So social skills, integrating social skills instruction into a classroom at a universal level provides all students with a consistent and supportive framework for behavioral expectations, an important part of positive behavioral support. So we know that teachers who integrate this, teaching the social skills in with their classroom, that's a good thing. That's a very positive thing. And sometimes teachers find that the little bit of time that they do spend doing that actually then leaves them with more time to actually do instruction rather than managing behavior. So if they learn to teach the social skills with the expectations of what they expect of their students, it reduces the amount of time spent in managing behavior. Now, we also asked teachers what their 5 most important skills were. So conflict management, resolution, following rules and instructions, staying focused on completing assigned tasks, controlling anger, and coping with challenging situations. Now, we found that these sort of lined up with the CASEL model. So I want to show you, we went, as we saw these things and we started researching how we were going to frame the website, we thought social emotional learning is what we want for the basis of the website. However, at the time when we made the website several years back, teachers were more aware of social skills than they were of social emotional learning. So we wanted to website be a teacher-friendly and friendly website. So we on the website, we have about social emotional learning, but the name of the website we did a whole bunch of marketing to figure out what would be a good name. So we said building social skills with books was what I wanted to call it. It's very straightforward, not a bunch of lingo and jargon. Social emotional learning, it's a buzzword right now, but a lot of teachers and parents really are not as familiar with that as what you might think. But the process allows all young people and adults to acquire and apply knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal collective goals, feel and show empathy, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. And then the importance of SEL. So there's been tons of research since the time that we did our literature review. Durlack in 2011, Durlack et al. Came out with how it's really the social emotional learning really improves academic learning for children and improves behavior. And they had a big study come out, and Durlack was on several other studies too. So when I show you the resource sheet, I'll show you those articles if you're interested in looking those up. But anyway, social emotional learning reduces current and future behavior problems. It's proactive. It's like decreasing drug use, violence, and delinquency. You don't want to wait and fix it after those behaviors are there. You want to prevent those behaviors from happening. So when students engage in SEL, they develop a greater sense of compassion, feel more connected to the community as a whole. And when students participate in SEL programs, school attitudes, behavior, and academic performance improve. Now, the CASEL website, the CASEL, CASEL stands for the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. Note that they added the word academic in there because it is hard to sell something to a school. Or when I say sell, I don't mean like money wise, but I mean, it's hard to influence people who are teachers. If you're not going to improve academics, they're not going to be as interested. If you can improve academics and test scores, everyone is more interested. So this organization started out in the 80s and then developed pretty strong in the 90s, and then in the early 2000s it was well underway. But what they did is they started this little kind of circle thing over here that shows, and when they first did it, it did not have all of those blue rings around it. When they first started out, they just had these 5 integral pieces of social emotional learning. Then they realized, oh, you don't ever have anything without the context of the classroom, the school, the classroom and the schools, families and caregivers and communities. So they wanted these social emotional things to be in the context of where children live and where children interact. So that's why they want to develop partnerships with parents and communities. Those things are really important. So the 5 pieces are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Okay, just with that, keeping that in mind, here's what their website, the CASEL website, says that SEL leads to improved academic outcomes. SEL benefits long-term and global. There are benefits immediately almost, but long-term, there are big benefits. And social emotional learning is a wise financial investment. Social and emotional skills help improve lifetime outcomes. Okay, so we're going to talk about each one of these areas just briefly. So I'm just going to introduce these because we don't have time to go into big depth, but I'm going to show you how the website kind of connects these 5 pieces into social skills. First of all, the self-awareness is being aware of one's thoughts and emotions and how one's thoughts and emotions are related to behavior. So it's kind of cognitive behavioral. What we think affects how we act, and that affects how we feel. All those are integral to each other. Self-management, having self-control over one's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. The self-management goes into what teachers really want for the children. They don't want to be managing each little individual for every little detail. They want children to learn to manage their own behavior. And ultimately, that is the better thing for the kid. You can force children to do things, and you can kind of force this thing on them, how they have to behave. But unless they take it internally and want to behave, it's not changing their lifetime course. It's got to be inside. So each child needs to have self-control over one's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Social awareness is understanding another person's perspective and being sensitive to how another person is feeling. Empathy, things like that is really important. Acceptance of others, inclusion of others, those kind of things are really important to kids. Then relationship skills, getting along with others and developing good communication skills, listening skills, cooperation, conflict resolution strategies, and resisting peer pressure. Those kind of things are really important. Now I'm going to read a book to you just to give us a little break here. And this book is one of my very favorites. It's written by Jacqueline Wilson, who I kind of have a backstory to Jacqueline. I had some emails to and fro with her at one time. And I was very, very disappointed that she did not want to come to BYU. She did not want to Skype into my classroom. And the reason she gave is she'd had some bad experiences with BYU and it being a church school. And she is African-American, and she's a beautiful person, a beautiful woman, and she's an excellent writer. Every one of her books, I've read a lot of them, and they're all super good. But she had her feelings were hurt by BYU, and she also did not believe in BYU's mission. She thought we were a bunch of white people who weren't interested in others. But you know, I apologize. But she was very angry at me. Anyway, so that's the backstory on Jacqueline Woodson and how she almost came to BYU, but she didn't. I would still love to have her, you know, come and maybe for UASP she might. I don't know. But she's an amazing woman. She really is. And she gets great people. That E.B. Lewis is a fantastic illustrator. Okay, now I'm going to go into my book. Okay.
Melissa, while you're pulling up this wonderful book for us to get to learn from, if anyone happens to have a question, I think it's a natural moment.
Yeah, it's a good pause. Anybody have questions? Just speak up.
Yeah, feel free to unmute if you have any questions. And if there's no questions, that's of course fine, but just wanted to see. Okay, I'm thinking you've done a great job so far.
Okay. So this is a little bit tricky because it doesn't go page up and page down, but this is by Jacqueline Woodson. It's called Each Kindness. That winter, snow fell on everything, turning the world a brilliant white. This is going to drive me crazy because it doesn't flip page by page. Okay, and the pictures, there's some more pictures of that. I like her book too. She doesn't have a lot of words. One morning, as we settled into our seats, the classroom door opened and the principal came in. She had a girl with her and she said to us, "This is Maya." Maya looked down at the floor. I think I heard her whisper, "Hello." We all stared at her. Her coat was open and the clothes beneath it looked old and ragged. Her shoes were spring shoes, not meant for the snow. A strap on one of them had broken. Our teacher, Miss Albert, said, "Say good morning to our new student." But most of us were silent. The only empty seat was next to me. That's where our teacher put Maya. On that first day, Maya turned to me and smiled, but I didn't smile back. I moved my chair, myself, and my books a little further away from her. When she looked my way, I turned to the window and stared out at the snow. And every day after that, when Maya came into the classroom, I looked away and didn't smile back. My best friends that year were Kendra and Sophie. At lunchtime, we walked around the schoolyard, our fingers laced together, whispering secrets into each other's ears. One day, while we were near the slide, Maya came over to us. She held open her hand to show us the shiny jacks and tiny red ball she'd gotten for her birthday. "It's a high bouncer," she said. But none of us wanted to play, so Maya played a game against herself. That afternoon, when we got back into the classroom, Maya whispered to me, "Bet you can't guess who the new Jacks champion of the world is." Behind me, Andrew whispered, "Chloe's got a new friend. Chloe's got a new friend." "She's not my friend," I whispered back. The weeks passed. Every day we whispered about Maya, laughing at her clothes, her shoes, the strange food she brought for lunch. Some days Maya held out her hand to show us what she had brought to school: a deck of cards, pickup sticks, a small tattered doll. Whenever she asked us to play, we said no. The days grew warmer and warmer. The pond thawed. Grass began growing where snow had once been. One day, Maya came to school wearing a pretty dress and fancy shoes, but the shoes and the dress looked like they belonged to another girl before Maya. I have a new name for her, Kendra whispered. Never knew. Everything she has comes from a secondhand store. We all laughed, and Maya just stood by the fence. She was holding a jump rope, but did not come over to us to ask if we wanted to play. After a while, she folded it double, rolled the ends around her hand, and started jumping. She jumped around the whole schoolyard without stopping. She didn't look up once, just jumped, jumped, jumped. The next day, Maya's seat was empty. In class that morning, we were talking about kindness. Miss Albert had brought a big bowl into class and filled it with water. We all gathered around her desk and watched her drop a small stone into it. The tiny waves rippled out away from the stone. This is what kindness does, Miss Albert said. Each little thing we do goes out like a ripple into the world. Miss Albert let us each drop the stone in as we told her what kind of things we had done. Joseph had held the door for his grandmother. Kendra helped her change her baby brother's diaper. Even mean old Andrew had done something. I carried teacher's books up the stairs, he said, and Miss Albert said it was true. I stood there holding Miss Albert's rock in my hand, silent. Even small things count, Miss Albert said gently. But I couldn't think of anything and passed the stone on. Maya didn't come to school the next day or the day after that. Each morning I walked to school slowly, hoping this would be the day Maya returned and she'd look at me and smile. I promised myself this would be the day I smiled back. Each kindness, Miss Albert had said, makes the whole world a little bit better. But Maya's seat remained empty, and one day Miss Albert announced to class that Maya wouldn't be coming back. Her family had to move away, Miss Albert said. Then she told us to take out our notebooks. It was time for spelling. That afternoon, I walked home alone. When I reached the pond, my throat filled with all the things I wish I would have said to Maya, each kindness I had never shown. I threw small stones into over it, watching the way the water rippled out and away, out and away. Like each kindness done and not done, like every girl somewhere holding a small gift out to someone and that someone turning away from it. I watched the water ripple as the sun set through the maples, and the chance of a kindness with Maya became more and more forever gone. And that's how the story ends, which I think, in our lesson plan, we turn it into a positive thing. We say, let's write a letter to Maya and let's say what we would say if we had been this girl. Well, how could you apologize? How could you make a friend even though she's gone? And so we write letters. The other thing is, in this is, I think is really important, is at the beginning of the school year, when people are new to the class or whatever, I think it's always very important to teach and model to children how to be kind to others and how to be friendly and include others in your play. Those things are really important. Whoops, okay, I hope I am not off the Zoom. Okay, can you guys still see the book? Bethany, I hope it's okay. Okay, now we're going, this is the lesson plan that we made for this book.
You're doing great, Melissa.
Okay, so the book, this is just book information here. And then we just tell a little bit about the book Then the lesson objective. The way we treat others can have a good or bad effect on them. We need to make sure we help others feel included in part of our classroom. If we say some mean things about people, it can make them feel sad and unimportant. They might feel like they do not belong. And so then we have some activities that we do. We ask some questions. We read the book. Then we ask, anyway, this is how all the lesson plans are. It's exactly the same format. So you can just look down through that. Then we end it with, okay, we write closure, remind the students, you always want to close out, that it's important to help each person feel welcome and important. Help them to recognize how the girl at the end of the story felt. Now she wished she could have changed what she did. Help the students finish the story on a positive note. As a reminder for students, leave the poster hanging in front of the classroom. So this is the poster. When we say poster, it's just on a piece of paper. And we've done the bibliotherapy lesson plans with several schools. And we found that remembering, the teacher or a volunteer would do one lesson a week, and then they would leave this poster up to be referred back to during the week, and to remind kids about it's important to be kind, and that kindness begins with me. You don't wait for other people to be kind, you be kind. Okay, so, whoops. Okay, then the next thing in the castle model is the responsible decision making, carefully considering the potential outcomes, evolving from personal decisions by having forethought and looking ahead. And the purpose of bibliotherapy. Now we're going into bibliotherapy, putting aside the castle model for a minute, and the 5 pieces of the castle model. We're going to go in the purpose of bibliotherapy. And we just briefly described it, sharing books and stories to provide opportunities for emotional healing and growth. And that books help individuals find insight into personal problems. And that Pardek, who has long promoted bibliotherapy, sees it as a way to help support children who are facing a variety of challenges. Research background. Bibliotherapy methods used in treating depression are shown effective as group or individual therapy sessions. Now, sometimes people say there's really not a lot of research done on bibliotherapy, but actually there is quite a lot out there. There's a lot of people that do their thesis and their dissertation on bibliotherapy. It used to be harder to get things published on bibliotherapy. Now it's becoming somewhat easier because people have, I think we've grown to appreciate that stories are very important, and that it can help people with issues such as depression. Bibliotherapy helps students how to problem solve, to come up with alternative ways to resolve issues that they face. And bibliotherapy is helpful for students with high incidence disabilities who are experiencing difficulties or who may be likely to encounter problems similar to those discussed in the literature. So a lot of times you'll hear this, and it seems to be that kids that have like learning disabilities, a lot of times, they also have social skills deficits. And so we need to look at not just their academics, but also how can we support them in developing better social skills and having better interpersonal relationships. It's really important. So the website that we designed is online. Here's the link to it. They're free lesson plans. They're, all kinds of things in them. This is the structure. When you go to the front page of the website, it has the 5 areas of the social emotional learning, all those areas. And then you click on these and they take you to the social skills, which what I did is I went to the website, cut and pasted, so we don't have to go through each one of them. But in those, it has like volunteering. There's like books that are under these topics. But these are the areas that are under social awareness: volunteering, showing respect, perspective taking, and appreciating diversity. Then responsible decision making, accepting responsibility, resisting peer pressure, relationship skills, joining in, inviting others to join in, showing appreciation, making a compromise, building friendships, being kind. So with each of these things that are green, there are lesson plans that go to those. Self-management, waiting and interrupting appropriately. Like impulsive kids a lot of times need strategies for how to manage their impulsiveness. And that can really help a teacher a lot. Sometimes those kids who are impulsive really get on teachers' nerves, and parents as well. It wears you down. So it's really good to help teach them some strategies for managing their impulsiveness. following instruction, managing stress and anxiety, self-motivation, and managing grief. On the website, we have tons of books managing grief, but they've not put up any of those yet. Checked yesterday, they're still not up. In the future, there will be books there. Self-awareness, optimistic. And so I'm going to just click this one and show you where it goes to. It goes to the website. Each one of those you can click, and then it takes you to the lesson plans. The lesson plans are all named after the book that they're modeled around. And then there's activities. And each of the lesson plans also has activities, but we also found that sometimes teachers might just want to do an activity. And we found that, I'm going to talk a little bit about activities in a minute, but they had to be really quick. So Hunt for Happiness, let's look at that. This is all online, it's all free. So this is just an activity. No materials are needed, no actions needed. Have the children make a list of things that they feel make life worth living. Then have them work up a list of animals, people, or places that make them happy, bring smiles to their faces. Parents and teachers can help the children spend about 15 minutes on a scavenger hunt, searching for as many items on the list as possible. Once the child discovers an item, she or he can place a sticker on or draw a smiley face next to the item. So you can have a little scavenger hunt with that. And we try to tell teachers how long the activities are going to take. The optimism list, that's another kind. Open the discussion by providing examples to your students about how you feed your optimism when you are feeling down. For example, after a bad day at school, you may go home and curl up with an uplifting book, or perhaps you find that exercise is important in fighting stress and feeding your optimism. What about a good night's sleep? Then get the students brainstorming a list of times when their optimism may need to be fed, like a poor test result, a fight with a mom or dad, etc. Have them suggest they could go about feeding their optimism in these hard times. Then have the students select 10 ways they feed their optimism and create a top 10 list. To illustrate their list as well, have fun with the dramatic reading of these lists. The students could put their top 10 lists into poster format throughout the school, or consider holding a top 10 list contest in your classroom. So we just kind of give teachers some ideas of what they could do. All right, now I'm going to go out of that. Okay, so each one of these you can click and it goes to that part. So being, see, extra lesson plans. We also had speech and language professors at BYU, Bonnie Britton and Martin Fijuki. They did lesson plans for students with language delays. And what they did is their speech therapists actually read children's books, and then they came up, here's all those lesson plans here. There's tons of them. Anyway, you would go in, Llama and the Bully, and then here's their lesson that they made. It's not in the structure that we made ours, because it had a bunch of interaction and asking questions about emotions, asking questions. It might go over a kid's head when they're, if speech and language delays, this is really, so the first page of each of these tells a little bit about what their lesson plans are about. Like, why do you need to share a story to facilitate social and emotional learning in language delays? Then they go into the book that they picked, and then how. Anyway, so those are a little bit different. So all of these, Martin, Yuki, and Bonnie Britton created those for the site. Okay, so this has lesson plan categories. Let me put this up. Okay, this is their pragmatic speech thing that they did. They presented this and published on it, but it's if you're into language development, this is what it helps. They went through the book and they said, these are the things that teach in speech and language usually, and this is what they're working on, these emotions and that. So I thought that was pretty interesting, really. All right, let me get out of that. Okay, so but each of those green areas is an area with books. So you go in to the website, then you click, and here's all the books, the lesson plans. It's not the book itself, it's the lesson plan that goes with the book. And then the posters, we have posters too. So like if you clicked on this one, it would come up. So we can use these as writing prompts. Teachers could use them as writing prompts, or parents at home. Think a little deeper and apply it. Okay. Now, Okay, so pro-social learning, a best practices report was prepared by, have any of you guys seen this? Just speak up or whatever. Have you guys seen this social emotional learning, a best practices report prepared by ULEAD in 2019? Bethany's seen it. Anybody else? Okay, so this is a 24-page report, and here's the link to it right there. Hanover Research and ULEAD examine research-based strategies for effective emotional learning in pre-K through 12 schools. This report is intended to support districts working to improve their social emotional learning curriculum and instruction and standardize implementation across school sites. So that's like if you want to develop district-wide or school-wide social emotional stuff, that's really good. And that's a very good report. It's only 24 pages long and it's really good. And here's the front of it. This is what it looks like. And here's the table of contents. So it tells you all about an overview of social emotional learning, the framework, common definitions and protocols, and then it goes into implementing social emotional learning, organizational, instructional practices. It has all kinds of then assessments for how you observe students, survey instruments, character report cards, and performance tests. So you can assess how your social emotional learning is affecting the children. Okay, now, I don't know how many of you guys were this. There's controversy in Sandy, Utah, in the Canyon School District. Anybody here from Canyons? I don't know. I have no idea. So this was a debate that came up, and a couple parents actually went through, they were implementing second step social emotional learning. It's a program that you purchase. And a couple parents went all the way through it, read it, and they came up with like a 24-page, I think it was maybe, anyway, 20+ page of their concerns. So I thought it was really, really kind of interesting. So I wanted to play that little video. This is something you don't usually think of. You think it's so easy just to do social emotional learning, but you got to think of this kind of stuff. And if I can make it work, it'll be a miracle. Okay.
It's about peace of mind.
Making sure that communities of color have access to vaccines.
And knowing you're not alone.
We're okay, so they'll be okay.
Finding the answers.
They were excited for math instead of feeling overwhelmed by math.
Being responsible.
Trying to make it the most water efficient as possible.
Highlighting hope.
Giving me opportunity to be able to be successful when I get out.
And looking toward the future.
I would hire.
I don't know why it's doing that. Wait 1 second. No, don't. Okay. You guys, I am so terrible at this kind of stuff. I had this up and running. Okay, now I'm trying to think of why.
We have faith in you, Melissa.
Okay, it's a debate and they have it on here, but where is it? It was right there when I did it the last time.
Fox 13
I think there's an
News,
advertisement and then
solutions for Utah.
A fight brewing over a school curriculum, not critical race theory, but something called social emotional learning, or SEL for short. It's a concept that focuses on developing skills such as stress management and relationship development.
Tonight, the Canyon School District is deciding what to do with the curriculum from here. Fox 13's John Franke is at district headquarters in Sandy tonight. John.
Well, guys, it is a very late night. Here's a live look at that boardroom. You can see the meeting is still going on right now. Now, last month, the district paused its social emotional learning curriculum. It was approved by this very board back in 2019, and that's why we're here tonight.
Our children matter, and what they're being taught in school matters.
Lisa Logan is a parent of 2 students in the Canyon School District. She tells us she spent hours here at the district office reviewing how social emotional learning is presented in elementary and middle schools.
Lesson by lesson, slide by slide. We looked at the teacher handout.
This is the curriculum Lisa and others find problematic, the Second Step Social Emotional Learning Program. Its website says it aims to teach students how to gain confidence, set goals, make better decisions, collaborate with others, and navigate the world more effectively.
When it's done with a political or ideological lens, it really is not healthy for our children.
Lisa and another parent composed this 25-page document detailing underlying issues they believe are in the 8th grade SEL curriculum. Things like discussing racial and gender power and privilege, and age-inappropriate material on topics like relationships and sex.
It goes really beyond pushing kids to be kind to people who are different than them, and really to accept these ideologies and to really be social justice activists for them.
In late September, after concerns were raised, the district notified parents of Superintendent Rick Robbins' decision to place Second Step curriculum on hold. The notice said the Second Step curriculum, although supported by many, has links to information that may not meet the community's expectations and needs. The issue was put on the agenda for tonight's board meeting.
I have not signed up for group therapy for issues my children most likely don't even have.
But not every public comment was against the program.
We need to teach problem solving. We need to teach empathy. We need to do that in combination with the family and the home.
A packed room of parents and educators shared their opinions. Many spoke on the benefits of the program and expressed disappointment that it was paused.
Do not completely eliminate the program because of links that can easily be removed. You have an SEL curriculum already in place and it works.
I'm very dedicated to supporting the social and emotional needs of our students, as well as creating more equitable systems in our schools.
The superintendent is proposing this plan for the district to move away from Second Step and develop its own SEL material with lessons like what are my values, building self-esteem, and am I empathetic? Lisa believes voices like hers and other parents opened up this discussion, but no matter where people stand on the issue, she hopes all are involved in the conversation.
We teach them about goal setting. We teach them about how to treat others with kindness, and we should really have a say in how they're learning that at school.
Okay, there's got to be somebody who's been against it. I always like to say, always look at what the parents think and let the parents be part of the group that's developing the curriculum. Anytime there's a canned curriculum, you have to be very careful because there can be things which are offensive. And I looked through the curriculum for that second step social emotional learning, and they had a lot of cutting edge stuff that is kind of like, it's like our cancel culture right now is, I think there's a certain way you can go too far. And then once it goes too far, it's kind of like in the crazy land. I think that we have to be very careful and making sure that you have people that are not just the school board, but parents can look at something and say, I'm not comfortable with this, or I'm not comfortable with that, that's in a program. And that's why whenever you're doing children's books, try to always think about how it might affect, and we have to be careful. I thought it was interesting. I also went in and looked at they wrote up a really long letter where it criticized, and as I was reading through it, I say, I really had to agree with the people who were criticizing the Second Step. They had a lot of stuff in there promoting, and it was more than just social emotional learning. Let me give you a for instance of a thing that happened to me this past year. I was in class with students, and we were talking about, I was using examples because it was like, it was the consultation class. And so I was using some examples of how the politicians, how they use their base of power when they communicate. And there's a whole bunch of really great ones out there right now because of Trump. I give him credit for that. But there's like things where people are just talking so disrespectfully to each other, and where people are just like, just blowing up at each other, saying terrible things to each other. So I'm just saying, okay, these people are our government, and they're talking about very important issues that they're very passionate about, but they're not modeling the kind of behavior that we need when we're consulting with people who might disagree with us, or we're taking other information in. So anyway, when I was doing this, I let my I was irritated at Trump for the day. I said some negative things, and then a student came up and said, you know what, I don't appreciate it when you are being political in class. And I was like, what? I'm being political? I'm about the most unpolitical person there is. And she said, no, and then she told me the things I said. I was like, oh my goodness, you're right. I will never do that again. I really, really felt so awful about treading ground where I was trying to influence people. I really never want to do that. That's not my job. My job is not to influence people politically. That's not what I'm supposed to do. Likewise, in the schools, our job in the schools is not to talk about certain topics over top of other topics where we're diluting things and we're polluting things. We have to be very careful so that we're very respectful of each and every individual. And it's just hard. So I'm just saying you need parents involved when you're doing social emotional learning things, if you're going to do classroom-wide, school-wide, and it's always best they're involved and parents can see things that we don't see, and they'll save you a lot of time in the end because they are able to problem solve from a different angle than what me as a school psychologist or a teacher or district level. So anyway, just be careful. Building with books, and those are some of the books that are on the website. We're going to talk about this for a little. The lesson plans. Whoops, sorry. Okay, each lesson plan focuses on one specific book, and then here's kind of it's laid out. Here are all the ingredients. We wanted activities to be included with the story. You're going to, of course, be reading about the story, but there's all kinds of things. And at first we tried to line up the lesson with teachers' statewide learning outcomes, things that they were doing, grade level vocabulary they were teaching, grade level kind of science skills, grade level literature skills, writing skills, things like that. But then we found that as soon as we got it done, the state had moved on to something else. They weren't doing the Common Core. And there's like, oh my goodness. So don't ever like hang your hat on something that's in the school today, because it's going to change tomorrow. I'm just telling you, we spent so much time doing that, and it was totally wasted because they had moved on to something else. So we then said, we're just going to base it on the Castle model and go with that. And so that's what we did. So we always want to list what materials are needed and advanced preparation that you need to do for the lesson. We tried to make each of the lesson plans you would pick it up, and within a few minutes, you could review the lesson plan, see the activity, and a lot of the activities are just fun things that you do, and it doesn't take any time or money to prepare. We tried really hard to get most of the things to be that way. I remember one time I had a fantastic idea, and I was rolling out the months things at the elementary school. It was at Wasatch Elementary. We used to do the social skills things there. And I went in and I was saying, okay, we got to do that. And the secretary looked at me and she said, wait a second. Yeah, I have to copy all this stuff. And I was like, well, it's the activity for the day. She goes, no, you need to come up with a different activity. And then I found out that they had, there's just some huge issues with copying things at that school. You had to pay for your own paper, that kind of stuff. I mean, you know what I mean? It's just like, so I just, from there on out, it was a great activity though. I had made this bird that you could do, and you could go put your hand up and down and the bird kind of flapped its wings. It was so it required paper to be copied off, and then the kids had to cut stuff. Anyway, all that, it was out, it was gone. Beautiful, but totally worthless. Okay, so then, always after you read the book, you have a little post-reading discussion to talk a little bit about the book, ask some questions. Then you have an activity that's aligned with that social skill and book, and then a poster you want to put up that emphasizes the lesson objective. Try to boil the lesson objective down in the poster to very few words. And I'll show you what I mean by that, because I'm going to show you some examples of posters. Okay, activities and lesson plans aligned with the story, individual paired dyads. We always had a lot of paired activity because that allows the kids to do something and practice the social skill right there on the spot, the small group or the classroom wide, to try to have that. We found out with the kids, now we did tons of stuff where we got information from the parents, the teachers, the kids. The kids said they hated worksheets. Well, I've always used worksheets. I thought they were kind of okay, but they said they loved like videos and they loved activities, but they did not really care for worksheets. So I'm going to go to the videos in just a second, but we want it to be cheap or no cost, 10 minutes or less preparation, because teachers do not have time. And then typically we divided our lesson plans into K through 2 and 3 through 6. Started doing that kind of midway through. So some of the lesson plans you'll see where they have K through 2 and 3 through 6 activities, different activities, because they're different ages. And we found that was a good break. Kids 3 through 6, the 3rd grade through 6th grade can usually write and do activities where you have reading or writing or whatever. And K through 2 is mostly you need to use pictures and hands-on kind of things. And that we also want the activity to promote the desired social skill that reinforces social. Here's some of the favorite things. They love short video clips. So we tried to go on YouTube and get these. The only thing is over time, the video clips will be dead links, but these, and I got 2 that worked. So this is just an example of the kid president. Have you guys ever used this when you're teaching social skills? The kids love them. I'm going to show you just a little bit. Whoops, wait, sorry. I'm going to show you just a little bit of this video. And hopefully it
Melissa,
won't have
after it plays, if you want to see about questions.
I'm Dr. Jeff Vineker, and today we'll explore the science behind chemical versus physical changes.
There are lots of ideas how you can change the world. Some people think you should just complain about it. That won't change the world, it'll just make it bad. Some people think you have lots of money, making it rain everywhere you go. Holla for $1. Some people think you have to be really loud and yell a lot. It's like with a bullhorn shouting, "Hey you, yeah you, do it my way right now, you heard?" Other people choose to just make fun of everything. That's dumb, everyone's dumb. It's easier to make fun of stuff, but it's cooler to make stuff. Some people think changing the world can only be done by the smartest person in the world. Just put them in a room, let them figure it out. The solution of world hunger? Food. Wow, that was like so amazing. Some people see the bad in the world and they just decide to ignore it. But that won't help anything. Some people think you have to be really famous and super cool. In fact, lots of people think you have to be really powerful to make a difference. Like being mayor or senator or president. But the truth is, a title doesn't make you more important. The world is changed by you. It's one person filled with love. And they just have to live it out, so they do something awesome. Then that person is filled with love. They do something awesome. It just goes on and on and on and on. And the next thing you know, everything's awesome. Some people think it's impossible to change the world.
It's impossible to change the world.
Well, you can see why they could think that. Living in the world with kids who are hungry, people who are homeless, families weren't happy. I'm just trying to figure it out like everybody else, man. But I do know this, though. Next time you feel overwhelmed or totally alone, remember this. Things don't have to be the way they are. The world is changed by ordinary people. Little people living out big love. And that's what gives the world a reason to dance.
It's so cute. Anyway, those video clips are really good to use when you're talking about how you get along, how you problem solve, how you face difficult challenges. And I always feel uplifted by that little kid. He's just so amazing. And then other inspirational videos, there's tons of them that you can find. And just a little thing to help build people's optimism is really good. Okay, let's take a break now. Bethany, what do you think? 5 minutes, everybody leaves and goes take a little break.
Yeah, it's 1:02. My thought would be just to make things a little easier. Let's go, if you're okay, Melissa, all the way to 1:10 just to make it smooth. And if everyone seems to be back, just put in the type that you're back or throw your audio or your video on.
So take a break.
See you soon.
Now I'm afraid to go out, so I'm just leaving it on.
Are you needing anything else, Melissa?
No, I'm just afraid to turn it off. So it's working. Everything's working. I can't believe it. So we're going to come back at 2:10. I'm just setting my timer right now.
Yes, for you 2:10, for us 1:10. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah. Sorry. All right. Yeah. Go take a break.
Okay.
Where's she at?
welcome back to everyone that's back. I hope your break was well. Gonna look for Melissa, because when she gets back, we'll get going. If anyone has any questions that they've been sitting on, we can definitely do questions now as well if you are comfortable with that, Melissa. Otherwise, we can
we can do
rejoin
questions.
the content.
Yeah, we can do questions. Feel free to just speak up, anybody. Audrey, do you have something to say, or she turned green? Okay. Nope, she doesn't. If anybody has something to say, just speak up. Or is there anything in the text to the side, Bethany?
So far, there is not. Of the content that's been in the text so far has just been some comments around the frustration that was felt when second step was nixed. As well as some comments of just gratitude about the story, the first one you read, and then some questions just to repeat so everybody's aware. The video of the recording today will be housed on the UASP member site, as well as Melissa sharing the content with everyone via the links.
Okay.
Otherwise, no other questions.
All right, thanks, Bethany. Okay, so let's go on from the posters. We always try to include something that's interesting to look at and think about. Here's another poster that's in one of the stories. And this is on Cahill Gibran. They wrote a children's book about his marching and is, what's it called? I can't think of the name of it. Oh gosh, the March to the Sea. Anyway, he was nonviolent. His nonviolent opposition to things is kind of inspiring. He said, "I slept and I dreamed that life is all joy. I woke and I saw that life is all service. I served and I saw that service is joy." Thought that was really cool. Social validity. We also looked at the social validity when we were doing this buildings with books, using the lesson plans in the school. The students responded that they identified social skills, that the teachers actually identified the social skills, and they thought, the students thought they were often important. And we had like not at all important, sometimes important, often important, and always important. So they thought they were often important. The most popular method of social skills instruction was playing games, which students rated as often being fun. Other popular methods included movies, watching movies, listening to the teacher read books, and role plays. They liked role plays, which also is very interesting because some kids love it and some kids don't. But this was at an elementary school where there were like 727 children that we did K through 5. And so they really like the role plays, but I think it also depends on who is doing the lesson and how they can engage the kids and get the kids involved. Most students reported very often using the social skills steps that they were taught. This school identified a list of social skills, one for each month, and then they had sub-step skills. And anyway, if anybody's interested in what they did, it was Grove Crest Elementary in Alpine did this. They had really a school-wide positive behavior support thing where they identified social skills, and then they all worked on those social skills and did assemblies to reward people. I mean, they had all kinds of stuff going. They were really cool. There's the website again. Me or Beth Cottrell Praga is still at BYU. This is just my cell phone. You're welcome to call me anytime. Or I don't use my BYU email much anymore because they don't send things through to me the way they should. So I have a Gmail account. So you're welcome to use that account. These are some of the things I told you about the Durlac right here. Sorry, I keep forgetting. I can't highlight what I want to show you. Can you see my pointer if I'm over here pointing? Bethany, do you see? Okay, you do. Okay, so right here, the Durlac article, this was a big groundbreaking thing in 2011, the impact of enhancing students' social and emotional learning, a meta-analysis of school-based universal interventions. We really talked about the positive behavior support and social emotional learning. This was a big, huge thing, showing that school-wide, there were big improvements made. And then just some other articles. Okay, the power of stories. I wanted to go through this a little bit because I think shows you why we want to use stories to help children. The right story at the right moment is an arrow to the heart. It can find and catch what's hiding inside the reader or listener, the secret hurt or anger or need that lies awaiting, aching to be brought to the surface. And that's by Bruce Coble, who is a children's literature author. Stories and metaphors. I also include metaphors with stories because I think any connection that you make is like important, and there's usually a story behind the metaphor kind of that helps us help our minds build bridges between what is new and what is unknown or misunderstood. Different formats of information, charts of data, may be suited to different situations, but researchers say stories wield a particularly strong influence over our attitudes and behavior. And that's from an article that was written. They were talking about how information is shared, and that usually we're big on data and everything, and that's important, but it's always a story behind the data, or the story makes our attitude, it really impacts our attitude. When you listen to a story, your brain waves actually start to synchronize with those of the storyteller. And reading a narrative activates brain regions involved in deciphering or imagining a person's motives and perspective. And that, I think, is such a cool way to think of when our brain waves synchronize with the storyteller. The cadence of the language, the sound of the words, everything really is very engaging. Okay, stories help open our minds to see, experience, and understand something in a new way. Solid information in any form is good, Green says, but that's not necessarily enough. A vivid emotional story can give that extra push to make it feel more real or more important. If you look at the times somebody's beliefs have been changed, it's often because of a story that hits them in the heart. There's a video, I'm not going to play this right now because I want to get to other things, but it tells about the power of a story. It's by the National Geographic, 2 minutes, 54 seconds, but it talks about these filmmakers and artists who their perceptions and the stories that they want to tell, and complex stories with pictures and anyway, it's really interesting. National Geographic's always great. We connect to emotion. So how do you harness the power of storytelling? First, it's about finding that emotional core of your message. Emotion combined with information becomes memorable and actionable. Confused by what that means? Think about it. Where were you on 9/11? Chances are, well, those of you who were born, I mean, it's so long ago, chances are you remember exactly where you were when you learned about the tragic events that transpired that day. But if you had to think about where you were the day before that, that memory is probably hazier. Information attached to pain or pleasure creates an emotional connection that resonates within you. This is at the heart of the power of a great story. So we talk about the phases of bibliotherapy. Stories get people involved. We want to get them interested, looking at pictures, listening to the story. They identify with characters and situations. Once they identify, then they're able to feel. They have emotional, they vicariously experience the character's feelings. Then they gain insight that relates to the story and their personal situation. And then universalism is where they gain a broader perspective, helping them feel that they're not alone and that others struggle with similar challenges. Okay, I don't know why that went off, but okay. This is the template for the bibliotherapy lesson plan. And I kind of describe what you put in it. And then I just wanted to do a couple of little posters that were to ease your brain of information, because we've had a lot of information pumped into you. Sometimes we need someone to simply be there, not to fix anything or do anything in particular, but to just let us feel that we are supported and cared about. And then that's a really good book, The Rabbit Listened. It's fantastic. And if you don't have that book, I have that book with me, and it's a children's story that is, it's very short. It's not very long. I hardly got any words, but it's very good because it goes through all the animals that try to help this little kid when his blocks are tousled down. And then how really all he wanted was someone to be there with him and be there for him. It's cool. A good therapy book.
I shared, Melissa, in the chat that it's been a hard day over in my land and I needed that one. So I think I'll have to read that one this evening.
Oh, do you have it? Bethany, do you have it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's so sweet. It really is sweet. And when you read it, it just helps you know that people want to help, I think sometimes, but usually we don't need to give advice and try to solve the problem for the person. It's like we just are there for them. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about grief because I have tons of information on grief. This is a book that we were kind of using with the people who had their parent died when they were young. They are adults. They were adults, but they were looking back, and some of them liked this book because it kind of displayed what depression looked like. So in the book, the father completes suicide, and the book is not one you would read to a whole classroom of kids. I think you would read this with kids who had actually experienced the suicide of a parent. And I would only do it with children who experienced the suicide of their father, because when you're reading a book, you don't want to put it in the child's brain that, oh, maybe the other parent's going to complete suicide too. You have to be very, very careful when you're selecting books for children that have been through a specific trauma. But I like that one day Rafi's daddy stopped playing racing cars with him. In fact, he no longer played with him at all, and he stopped going to work. Rafi's mommy said that his daddy was ill and needed to rest. So giving the child the opportunity to understand that this is like an illness and they're not feeling well. And then that big cloud over that, I thought that was a good way to kind of represent depression and help explain that to a kid. Another thing in books for grief, this was really cool because then this book is hard to find because it's limited by the publishing of it. So I doubt if you can even get this book. But what I liked about the book was that each day that you face getting out of bed is like turning a page. And their father dies in the book, but you don't know how or why. He just dies. And then the mother and the two daughters are left to face each day. And I like that they talked about it. It's like turning a page every day, like turning a page in a book. It's a very good metaphor. I also like this one, My Big Dumb Invisible Dragon, because it puts grief as a dragon. And then he talks about like when he's at bed at night, the dragon sitting on his chest, and that tight, heavy feeling that you feel is sort of comparable to that pain that you have when you have really grief, when you're struggling with grief. It's a good book for that. I also like this book, One Wave at a Time, Story About Grief and Healing. It talks about grief as being like waves that come in and go out. And sometimes they're much more violent than other times. It's kind of like our emotions. Grief will come and go, and just kind of making it look like a wave in an ocean was kind of a cool metaphor. I also love this book, Life and I, A Story About Death. It's very sweet, and it has two characters, life and death. And death is the character that's dressed in black, but it doesn't make her like she's a bad person. And I'm going to read that book to you just because it's very quirky, but really cool. And it wouldn't be good for every child, but I think for some children, it would be good. So I'm going to open that up right now. Okay, this is called Life and I, A Story About Death. And it's written by Elizabeth Helen Larson and Maureen Schneider. Okay. And it's kind of like it's a German book or something, because it says it's translated. And I just have a feeling this is it's just kind of different. I'm death, just as life is life. I'm death. See, it has her going and visiting. It was like the Grim Reaper, only with a more positive slant. I pay visits to small animals with soft fur and to big animals with trunks or sharp teeth. I may arrive before the birds awaken or after the sun is swept over the sky. I may appear in the haze that hovers above the sea or in a narrow strip of moonlight. Some light candles as they see me approach. Others close the curtains and hope I might pass by. Sometimes I must knock a little more firmly on doors that nobody wants to open, but from me, no one can hide. I come most often to those with wrinkles, those who have lived the longest, those filled to the brim with the wonders of life, as if filled to the brim with food. I take their arm and we hold one another steady, bodies creaking as we hobble onwards together. Sometimes I have to visit many people in the same place. Shoulder to shoulder, we stand in a circle. I put up lights for all to see. No words are needed as we hold hands and slowly move as one bright flock. From time to time, I meet those with downy, soft hair, with little warm hands that I hold in my own. They look at me in the eye without blinking as we walk together step by step. Some proudly show me that they can whistle, while others laugh and playfully jump like bunny rabbits. And those who can't walk, I carry, cradled close to my chest as I hum a soft, sweet melody. I also meet those inside tummies, those who haven't yet been born. I tell them about butterflies, dandelions, and trees, about snowflakes, bare feet, and a splish splash of the sea. I tell them about love and living inside each other's hearts. They look at me with their eyes wiser than my own, as if they already know everything there is to know. Many people ponder all their lives what will happen when I come. Will it be chaotic or quiet, with the loss of a heartbeat and one last breath? Will they be buried or cremated? Can their ashes be scattered in the winds of a mountaintop? Will they go to heaven? Will they be born again? Is there a final resting place for us all? All these questions will be answered by me. I keep nothing hidden or secret. If I were to stop, who would make way for everything that takes root and grows? If I were to disappear, who would make way for all yet to be born on our earth? If I were to die, who would make room for new dreams and new words? Life and I live together in everybody. Sorry, some of these pictures you can't see very good. Life and I share everything that starts or stops. Life and I stand together behind all doors that open. If you are afraid of me or of life, I can whisper something to you. Love can transform sorrow and hate. Love can visit you every single day. Love does not die, even when it meets me. I am death, a part of life, a part of love, and a part of you. And that book is so strange. That's why I would not read that with a classroom. But you might find, someone that book would fit. So that's why I'm saying you always read the book, read it carefully. Think about who would be supported by that type of story and who might not be supported. Sometimes people, like if a person is terminally ill, let's say a parent is terminal illness, a story like this might be really, really good to read. I would have the parent, like when it's a sensitive topic like this, I would go over it with the parents first to say, is this a book that would be helpful? Because you always want to align with their beliefs. You might even pause in the book and ask, what does your family believe? Where do people go when they die? And helping kind of talk about death, because little kids, it's really hard to talk about, but we need to talk because when you talk about it, then it is very comforting because it's like there's a secret that's been let out and it's not a secret anymore. There's also a really good book. Oliver Jeffers has The Heart of the Bottle, the Heart and the Bottle. It's where a little girl loses her grandfather, and it's so painful that she puts her heart away in this bottle and keeps it there. And then in the end, the heart comes out of the bottle. But anyway, it's good. The other book that's really good for a lot of things is The Invisible String. They just redid the pictures a few years ago so that the pictures are much more updated now. And because that book was, but that Patrice Karst, this is one of the better therapy-ish books. Because sometimes I'm kind of anti-therapy-ish books, the books that people write specifically for therapy, because they're just too canned. But this is very sweet. It uses the metaphor of how we're all connected with this string to the ones that we love. And no matter where you go or what happens, even if you die, you're still connected together with this invisible string. It's very sweet. Okay, then now we're going into the topic of trauma. Okay, in the folder that I will make sure you get the link to, there are 2018 crisis class lesson plans. And then it's 66 pages long. The students in the class each made a lesson plan. And then there's resources too, different websites or resources that they felt were really good for all types of trauma or crisis. And some of them are about divorce, because sometimes we think, well, divorce, that's not really a crisis. It's a crisis to children. So be sensitive in what you think is a crisis or not. Then there's this really great, this is 162 pages long. It's from 2020, 2021 crisis class. And they put together some really great, I mean, there's really good stuff in there. And that's a PDF file that's in the folder. Then the additional books that I would say, My Heart by Corinna Lewickin, Life by Cynthia Rylett, Living with a Black Dog, his name is Depression by Matthew Johnstone, The Invisible Web, that's a takeoff from Patrice Karst's book, The Invisible String. She now has a newer book out, The Invisible Web, where it's like people all around the world are actually connected, and that we can strengthen connections or weaken connections depending on our individual behaviors. And that's really, it's a good book. I think it's really nicely done. If you like The Invisible String, I think you'll like The Invisible Web too. And then The Black Dog by Levi Pinfold. It's all about this black dog that kind of totally overtakes a whole family. They live in fear. They hide in their house. They're afraid of this dog. And then how the little girl is kind of the heroine. She goes out and actually befriends the dog, and everything's good. Okay. In every PowerPoint, I always have to use the spider web, because I took this picture one time and it was just so cool that I couldn't stand it. I had to share it with everyone. You're welcome to use it for whatever you want, but I made a little metaphor. Our life is like a spider web. We have anchor points. When the anchor points become unstable, the web falls apart in that one section. Then the spider quickly repairs the web. So always be thinking a positive take. When there's trauma, there's also, we survive and we can be resilient. And I think the spider's web is a good image of that. The sea glass metaphor also is really something that I think is helpful to people. Does anyone know what sea glass is? I read this, the first time I used this was in 2004, and we had a suicide in one of the elementary schools in the Provo area, and I was on the crisis team. So we went to the school and we were helping, and I just like really needed something for these kids to understand, because it was so painful. It was a little fourth grader, and it was just like so tragic. So I went in and I had a little thing written up that I read to the kids, and then I left some sea glass in the classroom. It was in the little boy's classroom that was the hardest, I mean, for me to work with. But does anyone know what sea glass is? If you walk along an ocean shore, you'll find sea glass. The ocean, water, and sand work together, gradually smoothing the sharp and jagged edges of broken glass. Over time, the glass becomes smooth and rounded on the edges. The glass is still there, but the edge is no longer cut. Sometimes bad things happen. It makes our hearts sad. We hurt. We may be angry. These are strong feelings. You may wonder if they will ever go away. Broken glass is like your feelings. Right after the glass is broken, the sharp edges can cut and hurt you. Your feelings hurt. They feel sharp and jagged. Over time and with the support of others, the edges of your feelings become smooth and rounded. Even though the memory stays in your heart, it becomes softer. In the future, you'll be able to think about what happened and it won't hurt as much as it does right now. And sea glass is really beautiful. I collect it all the time. Okay, now I'm going to go into this book, My Heart. I wanted to read this to you because this is a super sweet. It's all about, I think it's really good to use with kids who have a history of abuse because it's all about them taking the responsibility and having the personal power, taking back personal power to make decisions. So it's really a good book, and I'm going to read that to you right now. My Heart, here it comes. Okay, so this is by Corinna Lukin. And the pictures, there's basically very, very sweet pictures, but they're a little bit of color, very little color. My Heart. My heart, no. My heart is a slide. My heart can be closed or opened up wide. Some days it's a puddle. Some days it's a stain. Some days it's cloudy and heavy with rain. Some days it is tiny. But tiny can grow. And grow. I like there's little hearts, if you can see, it's really sweet. And grow. There are days it's a fence, me and the world. Days it's a whisper that can barely be heard. There are days it is broken. But broken can mend, and a heart that is closed can still open again. My heart is a shadow, a light and a guide, closed or open. I get to decide. Isn't that just beautiful? I just love that book. It's so sweet and so simple, yet very powerful. Okay. Oh, okay. We're running out of time. I don't know. This book is also really cool. It's called Life, and it's by Cynthia Rylick. Writes some really funny books. She's written books about all the cats that go to heaven, and I really like the book because it has all this imagination about what cats do after they die. And then in the very end of the book, there's like a black god, and he's petting these cats on him. And I just think it's so cute. It's just got a nice little twist at the end that's very unexpected and cute. But the book Life that she wrote, this is not a funny book. This is a very serious book, which is kind of weird because she usually has twists of humor in her books, but it's very beautiful. The illustrations are very beautiful. So, and then Living with a Black Dog is also a really good book. I really think this is good to help adolescents and older elementary school kids understand about depression and how depression takes over your life And pretty soon you are not the person that you really are. The depression kind of takes over. And that's a good book to help kids understand their own depression or a family member's depression. Okay, this is that story about the invisible web. I think it's good to use during times of trauma because we connect with others, especially in this day and age. I think it's just really important to understand that our behaviors affect everybody in the world. And that when we do things that are good and we make good choices and we're kind, that it strengthens this web that encircles the whole world. And so I really, oh, the black dog, that's about the little girl who's, she helps her family because she's the brave one who goes out and deals with this great big giant dog. And then it turns into a small dog once they understand it. And then it, you know, it lives with them. But it's very good. The pictures are so cool because I really like grays and whites and just a little bit of color. It's just beautiful. Okay, the most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep, loving concern. Beautiful people do not just happen. And that's Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was big with grief, wrote that. Blessed are they who see beautiful things in humble places where other people see nothing. And then I really like this Broken and Beautiful by Kelly Clarkson. If you're not familiar with that song, it's all about I'm enough and I'm beautiful, even if I'm broken. And that's a great, powerful story for when people feel they can't make it back or they're not resilient. It's like, yes, you can be resilient. And that reminds me of that kintsugi is the Japanese art of putting broken pottery pieces back together with gold, built on the idea that in embracing flaws and imperfections, you can create an even stronger, more beautiful piece of art. And it's like famous Japanese pottery. And this is gold and it's stronger after they bond this back together. And then there's a statue that's in Seattle, and I think there's other ones around the world now. It's called Expansion, and the artist is Paige Bradley, and where it's cracked and the light comes out through the cracks. And then I put, this is a little story about her and some of her quotations. I think it's cool, but I can tell you real briefly what it is. And then at some point, if you want to go back and read it, it's very empowering. And her one thing is, even when we feel completely shattered, we still have our soul. No one can take this. It's the immortal part of us all. Our cracks just allow everyone to see us a bit better and a bit brighter. And she tells about when she was an artist, everyone, it was going through this phase of where people didn't like things to look just like they looked. They wanted it to be creative and modern. And she just was more of a traditional ceramics person. And so then she was inspired this one time. She made a beautiful ceramic statue of a naked woman in a lotus position. And naked is like where you're very vulnerable. And but she then threw it to the ground. It broke into pieces. And she then made brass pieces out of those pieces, put it together like a puzzle, and then put this light inside that shone out of the cracks. I think it's really cool. I also like, go ahead.
I'm sorry. There's a really neat book that I was actually gifted. It was printed in 2020 about what you were just speaking of. It's called Golden Threads.
Oh, cool. Let me write that down because that's great.
I'll put it in the chat, but
okay.
Speaking to that binding and growing from any pain or change. So.
Oh my God, that smells so. I think it just went back into something. Wait, the book, my heart. Okay. Sometimes I get lost there. Okay, I'm back. Say the name of the book one more time, Bethany, because I was writing, but my thing went off.
Absolutely. It's called Golden Threads, and it's by Suzanne Del Rizzo, R-I-Z-Z-O.
Oh, I would love to read that. Okay.
I'll put a link in the chat box for everyone else.
I think that's a really powerful thing for kids to understand, is that broken things can be beautiful and you can be put back together and you can be even stronger even after you've been broken. That's a really good image for kids. And I don't know about sharing. It's a naked statue, so I don't know about sharing that with like kids in school. But to me, it's just beautiful. It's so beautiful. And the story is so beautiful behind it that I wanted to share it with you guys, but I, would hesitate about sharing that in school. Okay, history has shown us that courage can be contagious and hope can take on a life of its own. And I love Michelle Obama. I love the way she thinks and the way she's such a positive, optimistic person. And this picture, beautiful picture of her with her quote is, I think, just a beautiful way to think about that is courage is contagious and hope can take on a life of its own. I love that. I know what you could do though with that statue. You could actually blur it so you didn't see exactly what it was and you just see the outline of it or something maybe. Okay, here I do a lot of children's art. And so I made this one and I thought, this is the perfect title. We're all in this together. You're not alone. The most important message you can give to people who are in trauma are that they're not alone, that we're there for them, that we want to listen to them. We want to hear their story and we're not going to shy away from it. We'll let them tell us and we will be there to share it. And then there's a story and it's so close to the end now. I want to let you guys have some time if you want to talk, but Gloria Lynham wrote, she did dialectical behavioral therapy and the whole story behind her is so fascinating. How many people know the story behind Gloria Lynham? Anybody? Speak up. Okay, she wrote a book and I got this book and I'm reading it, Building a Life Worth Living. She actually had mental illness as a teenager. She was suicidal and they put her in a hospital setting and they were doing electric shock therapy and all this other kind of stuff. And she was like, this is not working. This is not fitting. And she's so intelligent. This woman actually figured out what she needed. She diagnosed herself and she figured out this is what I need. And she's big on borderline personality and she actually has borderline personality. She says that that's what she was diagnosed with. And that's what she actually diagnosed herself with. As she was reading more about mental health stuff, she figured it out and she figured out what she needed to do for herself. But it's a beautiful story. And so this was I took it off a blog, but it's promoting hope and preventing suicide. One of the things I thought that was really interesting. Oh, wait. Oh, okay, there it is. The thing I like that she said in her book is the one thing. She had a patient one time say, if you were like us, the patient said, you would give all of us so much hope. Now they didn't know her story. She didn't go around telling her story. So she's now written a book about her life. But I think that sometimes we don't want to put our personal problems onto a child, of course, but we can let them know that many people who have been through similar things, including ourselves, we have been through things. We don't want to go into detail because it's their story, it's not ours. But I think it's important to promote the thought that people, even with great challenges, there can be amazing things they can do in this life, amazing things. And at NASP, Temple Grandin came to talk. It was so motivational to me because she, again, is an example of a person who had huge challenges, and yet she rose above that and she found a way that she could be a contribution to society. She was also telling us that, I love these things that she talked about, the importance of doing and being involved and actually getting outside with animals and with nature and finding out what do we love, what are we good at, and then building on people's strengths. I thought that was, she just gave an incredible example of how we really need to look at people and what they can contribute, not what they drain away from society, but what they can contribute, and that people can rise above incredible challenges and trauma and do great things and make a very important contribution to their families and to their community. I think it's really important to think that. And Gloria Lynham, to me, I'd always read her stuff and I thought, oh, wow. When this came out, I was like, oh my gosh, this is an incredible story. And that's where I wanted to stop so that I think I'm almost, okay. Oh, there's a whole bunch of stuff on mindfulness too. Sorry, you guys. There's like little activities and things and more posters. I'll just end with whoops, no, I won't end. Wait 1 second. Why did that do that? The very
Melissa,
last.
I love that you apologize for having lots of stuff for us to explore on our own. You've given us a gift with that.
Oh, well, thank you, Bethany. But I wanted to close with this one thing, is that little piglet from Winnie the Pooh. How do you spell love? And Pooh says, you don't spell it, you feel it. That's so sweet. Anyway, I'll close with that. And now I just open it up to anybody want to share about a good book that they've used with kids that's really been helpful. And so just open it up to sharing. I don't know how we can make people who are in Zoom share, but
gentle encouragement.
Yes. Jordan, I'd really love for you to share. I know you're very creative. I'm sure you've used a story or two.
That's a lot of pressure. I don't know if I have any specific books to recommend, but I do have my bookshelf right across from where I'm sitting, where I have a lot of the books I've learned about from the website. So I just a shout out of thanks. I've been using those for the last 10 years, all those lesson plans and all those books. And
oh, wow.
Lots and lots of kids have been visited with those.
Yeah. But any book in particular that you feel was really like, sometimes it's like I hit it right on. It's 100% fit. And then other times afterwards, I'm like, oh, that wasn't perfect. It wasn't a perfect fit.
You know, probably one of the ones that I've been using a lot is the what is it called? Something's Beautiful, or what is it called? I've got it on my book.
Oh, yes, I have that book right here with me. Something Beautiful. Yes, it's just so cool.
Yeah. I use that book all the time, just as a way of, introducing the idea of finding joy in your surroundings, finding beauty and meaning in your everyday life. I don't know.
Yeah, that to me is one of my very favorites. It's called Something Beautiful by Sharon Dennis Wyeth. Really great book, and it's on the website, but the illustrations are so beautiful too. I love this. The little girl, just beautiful. And it's based on a true story, actually. I always like to read the front and the back of a book. And so in this, she talks about how she has a picture right beside her bed of a little thing that her mother gave her. She says, when I was 8 years old, I asked my mother whose name was Evan for something beautiful. Her mother's name was Evan, sorry. I don't have my glasses on, so Something Beautiful. She gave me one of her wedding gifts, a small white china pitcher with a golden handle and a golden rose embossed on it. I put the picture on my windowsill so I wouldn't have to look at the alley outside. I called the picture my Something Beautiful. When Mommy gave me the gift, she cautioned me not to forget that I already had something even more beautiful, the something beautiful I had inside. I still have the little picture. I keep it next to my bed. It helps keep alive the memory of childhood and my mother's love. So anyway, in the books, always read if the author wrote something, because it's usually a cool story. Thanks, Jordan. Okay, anybody else want to share? Susie? Oh, Naomi, go ahead.
I'll share, or if Susie wants to go, she can go too. No. Okay.
Go ahead, Naomi.
So I went to the Out of the Darkness walk in the fall, and there was actually a local person who did this book. I'm in my office, so I could pull it out. It's called Sometimes Illness Wins. And it goes into not just like cancer or illnesses, but it also touches on anxiety and depression, and how that is just an illness like anything else. And sometimes we have all these people who can help, but sometimes it does win, and it goes through the process of what that looks like. And the style of it reminds me a lot of what my students really enjoy at the elementary school, but also kind of seeing it portrays this girl as a warrior, and she's trying to fight these battles and appear strong, but then sometimes the emotions get really big, or sometimes she doesn't feel at all, and how all of that is okay. It's just showing us that something is wrong, and we need to be able to feel that, regardless if it makes other people uncomfortable. So I really enjoyed the book. I haven't quite had a chance to use it with a student yet, but as somebody who has lost people to grief or to illness, both mental and otherwise, like that, it really resonated with me. And the fact that it's a local author, it's Carrie Black and Becky Bowles, Bowles. like I said, it really like spoke to me. And so I'm like, I want to buy it. And it was raining, and so I bought it and like ran to my car so it wouldn't get messed up. But
oh, thank you, Naomi. That sounds like a fantastic book. I can't wait to get it.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Will you put
illness.
a link about it, Naomi, in the chat for everyone, if you don't mind?
okay, I don't know if they have the website, but I'll put the title and author.
Yeah, just the title and authors. Thank you.
Okay.
Did Susie have one as well?
I think I got volunteered, but I'm happy to share. One book that I've loved, and it is on the website too, is Each Kindness. I don't know if you went over that, Melissa, before. I jumped on a little late, but that if you have like Mean Girls in like 5th and 6th grade, that is a really, really good book that you can do like a classroom lesson on. Or like even one of my administrators like was dealing with some girl drama in 5th grade, and she had like, I think she read it to like each of the girls, and they had to like write a letter or something.
Wow. That is really cool, Susie. We did read that book before you came into the thing. That's one of my very, in fact, you know, Each Kindness, that was written by the woman, oh gosh, okay. Jacqueline Woodson. She just is such a fantastic person, and her stories are so cool that it just rings true. That book just really rings true to me. And I love the artwork in that book. It's really a good one to read. But I don't want to ever read that book and just end with it. I really want to tell the kids we can do something so that doesn't happen again. We can be kind. We can say we're sorry, you know, because the book ends and it's so sad. It's just so tragically sad. She's just standing there looking at the pond. I don't ever want to leave a child down there. I want to say, let's do something about that. So yeah, that's good. Thanks, Susie. It is good for all ages. Yeah. Anybody else want to share a book that they've used or read?
One that I liked, and I haven't used it given my context has changed, but is Ordinary Mary's Extraordinary Deed of Just a Small Act of Kindness, or one small deed has that ripple towards others. And it's just, I liked it particularly more for younger elementary age, but it seemed to really resonate back in the day when I would utilize that book. It's by Emily Pearson.
I like that book too.
Yeah.
Very empowering.
I'll do a social media post later today on Facebook. I know some people follow the US Facebook, other people's aren't as engaged on Facebook or social media, and to each their own. But to kind of help with potentially sharing, I'll just put a post out of, are there any good books that people enjoy utilizing with children or youth? And so if there's anything you shared today or didn't share and would like to continue that conversation, I'd encourage you to. Melissa, did you have any parting comments, as we're about 2 minutes away from our end time? This was wonderful content you shared.
I really like the idea of helping kids kind of think about things in a different way. And there's one thing by Alexander Graham Bell. Am I still sharing the screen? I think I am. He said that Alexander Graham Bell gave us an example of poor cognitive flexibility. When one door closes, another door opens, but we often look so long and so regretfully upon the closed door that we do not see the ones which are open for us. I think that always reframing things to see hope and to see possibilities are really, that's really an important thing. That's why I like that book, Something Beautiful, so much, because it reframes. She still has the same home that she goes to, but I love the part where she gets a sponge and she wipes off the front door where someone wrote die. I just think that's so good. A little kid, you know, doing one thing, that just was very powerful to me. When that book is just, I agree with Jordan. It's one of the best books. It really is. If you don't own that book, you need to own it. It's just so positive because it looks at your world so that it's the same world, but your ideas and your hopes all can change. Okay, and I do that because it's 3 o'clock and I always tell the students, go. It's time. No, but I'm willing to stay on longer. If anybody wants to ask questions or talk more about their books or whatever, I can stay longer. But I know you guys, your time is so important. I'm retired now, so I have all the time in the world. It's fantastic. Anybody else? Okay, Bethany, I think we're done. Susie, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you for a while.
Thank you so much, Melissa. If everybody can, silent applause or thank you. It's been lovely. I hope everybody took something away from today, small nugget or large, and it'd be wonderful if we can continue some of these dialogues. Melissa, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bethany. Thank you.
Welcome. I'll stop recording, and again, we'll be uploading it to the website for members. If anyone here is not a member and would like that, please email me directly. It's bford@dsdmail.net.
And then I'll make sure that there's the link in there to the, I'll give you the links again to the folder that has the PowerPoint and a whole bunch of book lists. There's all kinds of stuff in there. So you can go in and organize your folder however you want. You can download everything off of the website.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Hey, have a wonderful rest of the afternoon and good weekend, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.